DOW. Dits on Wrestling.
Welcome to the Dits on Wrestling podcast. I am your host, Dits, and we have a great show today. It's going to be a fun one. Not only have we had so much great wrestling up to this point when this episode drops. Great wrestling from NXT UK TakeOver to Royal Quest to AEW All Out. And then two great episodes of Raw and Smackdown this week as well. I haven't watched NXT or NXT UK yet. I tend to watch that the weekend afterwards, so I cannot give you any judgment on those yet. But I'm sure there we go. Well, actually, to be fair, I did actually watch the NXT UK taping for this week whilst I was at NXT UK TakeOver on Saturday. What a show that was. Unbelievable. I've never ever been anywhere with that kind of atmosphere before. It was incredible, but I'm not going to talk about it on here because I actually released a bonus episode this week on Sunday, which was pretty much my review on NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff. So after this episode, if you're curious to see my thoughts, or should I say hear my thoughts on NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff, head over to wherever you listen to the podcast, and it will probably be the one right below this one. So go check that out. It's nice and short as well. It's nice and short, so it isn't the long ones I've been pumping out in the last couple of weeks. So there you go, nice little bonus episode for you this week that dropped out of nowhere. Then of course we had AEW All Out and New Japan's Royal Quest, both of which I haven't watched. I will put my hands up. I haven't watched those yet. I will get around to doing it. But I also didn't watch Raw and Smackdown until Wednesday. So yesterday, if you're listening to this, the day it drops. Now, usually I have Raw and Smackdown squared away by the time I'm putting the finishing touches together for the episode. But this week, no. Not even close. By Wednesday evening, my guest spot is done. Raw is done. SmackDown is in progress, at least. The Q&A is done. Everything is ready to go. I'm recording this now with a guest spot done. Nothing else. Nothing else. So it's been a go with this week's episode, but I've nailed it. I nailed it. I've given you exactly what you expect from this podcast, and I've delivered it well. So don't you worry. Dits has come through. But I will get around to watching AEW's All Out and Royal Quest because I'm hearing very, very good things about both shows. I'll be talking about something from All Out specifically, Chris Jericho's title win. My thoughts on that. That'll be our little opening segment, which I've started putting together. So I just have a few thoughts on it because people are sitting on the fence with whether he should have won it or not. But I have my thoughts. I will give you my thoughts before we get into the usual Raw and SmackDown highlights. Now, last week on the show, I said that power rankings, specifically DOW power rankings, were coming back this week, and I ain't lying. Right now, if you're listening to this on a Thursday or Friday, Saturday, a little bit of Sunday, the window is open for you to submit your latest power rankings. It is back. It's a clean slate, I might add. It's an absolute clean slate that we're doing here. The previous scores, they're all archived somewhere. I'm starting afresh right now. I don't know why I'm doing it. I just want to just press reset, and then I can tally up everything, come up with like an all-time list of, an all-time power rankings, a monthly power rankings, and then just the weekly power rankings as standard. I feel like I have to start from scratch because honestly, it's actually due to me being lazy because I can't be asked going back through months of previous power rankings to tally up everything. But power rankings is back. It's back today, and it will be back every single Thursday. So if you head over to Twitter, find my profile, and the rules for this week will be on there. And that'll be the same for every week. As soon as Thursday hits, the power rankings window opens. So this week, you'll be able to rank NXT UK TakeOver, Raw, SmackDown, 205 Live, NXT, and NXT UK. So head over to Twitter and comment on my power rankings post with your top 5 superstars of the week, performers of the week. Doesn't have to be the wrestlers, can be the commentators, referees, whatever. Maybe Mr. Cone will be in there this week. He's been an active referee in the world of WWE this week, so maybe he'll make an appearance. Probably not, but it's your preference. You can throw in whatever you like. It is your power rankings at the end of the day. It's back. It's better than ever. Get voting, people, because it's going to get bigger. It's only going to get bigger. But the more people that take part, the more accurate it becomes. So get involved, peeps. And what I've just noticed as I'm recording this on GarageBand? My header is DOWPOD episode 19. Episode 20 is next week. That is mental. I didn't even realize we were at that point. Wow. So it's a landmark episode for the show next week. Obviously, I don't have anything planned in traditional Dits fashion because I didn't realize we were hitting 20. I thought we were at like 17. Obviously, I record this every single week, so you'd think that I would know what episode we were at. But these things creep up on you. 20 episodes, nuts, absolutely nuts. My gaze, though, for like a big landmark episode currently lies at number 25, though. So we're still a month and a little bit away from that. So that's coming. Maybe next week I'll throw together a song, like a terrible song, albeit, but a song that I did one for episode 10. So maybe I'll do one for episode 20. Who knows? I'm sure every single person listening to this is saying, just please God, do not subject us to such torture. But you have to celebrate these things. Episode 20 is a big deal, guys. It's a big deal. But I think episode 25 is a bigger deal. So I need to find a guest who is absolutely tremendous for the 25th edition of the Dits on Wrestling podcast. However, don't take that away from next week's guest, who I'm not sure who it is yet. But I will have a guest next week. And they will have the honor of being episode 20, or being a part of episode 20. But less of next week and less of episode 25. Who cares about that at the moment? Well, I do, but you guys don't. That's the most important thing. You guys, the listeners, do not give a crap about episode 20. You don't give a crap about episode 25 because you are listening right now to the DOWPOD episode 19. So let's kick things off properly and talk about Chris Jericho's title win from AEW's All Out show over the weekend. Split decision or split opinion across the board. I that's what I found anyway. By looking on socials, some people are saying you've handed the championship. The first champion of AEW is a 49-year-old man. Or, other people saying that, Chris Jericho is the GOAT. Why wouldn't you put it on him? Hangman is, he's still young. Let him build himself up to a world title win in AEW. There's a lot of arguments, for and against it. But I'm going to give you my spin. And it isn't because Chris Jericho is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. It is definitely not based on that. Okay? It is based on the fact that ultimately AEW is a business. And if you want business to kick off well, to start well, heading into your weekly TVs next month, Jesus Christ, next month in October, who would bring in the most eyes? Hangman Page or Chris Jericho? Chris Jericho being one of the greatest wrestlers / superstars of all time. Arguably, of course, but I'd say he's on many people's Mount Rushmores. Shout out to the Badlands pod who do Rushmores every single week. I'm on there soon. So keep an eye out for that. But I digress. Jericho is on most people's Mount Rushmores, I believe. So people know who he is. People who aren't au fait with what AEW are doing, or just haven't gotten around to, checking out their stuff yet. You get people that are just purely WWE guys, WWE fans. They're very sheltered. I'm almost in that bracket, but I acknowledge every bit of wrestling around WWE. I'm primarily WWE based, but everything around it I acknowledge, and I do tend to watch some of it. So I'm not completely sheltered, but for this, I can kind of understand where these people are coming from. Jericho's a big name. Most people will see him as a WWE guy, but they'll see him as a great WWE guy. So when somebody looks on the TV listings for AEW on TNT next month, and they see that the inaugural AEW World Champion Chris Jericho is going to be in attendance, he's going to be at the show, people are like, hang on a minute, Chris Jericho, our WWE Chris Jericho, is world champion at this other company. Straight away, you've got eyes drawn to AEW based on that fact alone. So, from a business standpoint, Jericho is the right move. And not even just from a business standpoint. Hangman Page is unproven at this point. I don't really know Hangman Page enough to, comment too much about it. But I don't believe that he's won a world title in wrestling yet. I don't believe that is. Somebody, comment on the episode's post on Twitter, or DM me, to correct me if I'm wrong, because, I'm not always right. I don't believe he's won a world title. So you could argue that it's too soon for him, to go straight into this match and win. I think it's better for AEW. Like, Hangman Page is somebody who can be a focal point for AEW going forward. And part of that is seeing him build to that eventual title win, because he is going to win it eventually. It's being structured that way. That's how we can perceive how things are going to go. Hangman Page is going to be AEW World Champion at some point in the future. But part of the fun of that is going to be seeing the journey that he takes to get there. Whereas giving him the championship straight away, that whole journey is stripped from us. Look back at Daniel Bryan's journey to that WrestleMania 30 moment. Imagine if all of that stuff, the B+ stuff, the authority going against him, the yes movement, all that kind of stuff. Imagine if that didn't happen. Daniel Bryan's win at WrestleMania 30 wouldn't have meant anything, really. It would have just been another new world champion. But because we had that journey with him, that moment was unbelievable. And I think it's going to be the same for Hangman Page, regardless of what, alignment he is, whatever journey he takes. The fact of the matter is we're on that journey with him, and that title win, when he does win it, it'll mean so much more. So from that point of view as well, Jericho is still the right guy to take home the belt. And I am actually going to throw in my Jericho mark card right now and just say Jericho is the greatest of all time. He is the GOAT. So why the hell not? He's making waves this week because he's got himself a meme. He's got himself a new catchphrase, and it's so simple yet so tremendous. There was a video going around where he saw some champagne backstage. And he commented on the Bubbly, and it's doing the rounds now. I love memes like this. They keep me entertained for hours on end. So he's done that. Like, he's still capable of throwing that kind of stuff together. They've got the whole thing going on with the championship belt going missing or being stolen. Whether that's a work or not, who knows? But it's feeding into storylines right now, and guess who's the center of it? Chris Jericho. So, I cannot look past Chris Jericho as your inaugural AEW World Champion. It would have been obvious if it was one of the elite guys who won it. Omega, Cody, the Bucks. Obviously, the Bucks wouldn't because they're in tag team stuff at the moment. But if any of those guys won, you've kind of gone, oh, come on, here we go. This is the start of it. That didn't happen. So the next person to point at is Chris Jericho. Not as obvious as the Elite, but it's still an obvious, choice to go with. But it's a correct choice, in my opinion. Of course, ultimately this is my opinion. So you guys will have your own opinions, and comment on the post on Twitter, DM me, whatever. We'll have a discussion on it, because it's always good to have discussions about wrestling. I love it. Nobody needs to argue. Nobody needs to argue, and that is a shame. That is one thing I've noticed again coming out of the weekend's set of wrestling is AEW versus WWE fans. It's fucking ridiculous. It really grinds my gear. It really grinds my gears. It pisses me off that so many people are just pro WWE or pro AEW. And it's fair enough if you want to be loyal to another brand. But if that is the case, don't go and shit on the other one. At the end of the day, wrestling is wrestling. WWE puts on wrestling. AEW puts on wrestling. New Japan puts on wrestling. MLW puts on wrestling. Reach Wrestling here in Plymouth puts on wrestling. Everybody does it differently. Some you'll like, some you won't like. But ultimately, it's fucking wrestling. And wrestling is stuff that we love. So I don't see why there has to be this war between fans. Oh, fuck WWE, AEW for life. Ugh. Or, AEW can fucking kiss my ass. Like, WWE, you're never going to make it, blah, blah. Just shut the fuck up. Just get along. Just look at the options that we have as wrestling fans in 2019. It is incredible the amount of content that we have at our fingertips as wrestling fans. Just leave it at that. Watch what you want to watch. Don't watch what you don't want to watch. But don't shit on the other people who like something else that you don't. It's ridiculous. It's getting beyond ridiculous. It's getting redonkulous. That's what it's getting. And it's frustrating to see. It really is frustrating to see, because you'll never see me putting somebody down for liking something that I don't. I'm on the fence when it comes to the likes. This isn't wrestling as such. These are wrestling characters, but I'm on the fence when it comes to the likes of Orange Cassidy and Joey Ryan. I see why it happens. Sometimes I enjoy it, sometimes I don't. But you don't see me going attacking people who like Orange Cassidy and who like Joey Ryan on Twitter. What is the point? They have their fans. Fans like them because they're entertained by what they do. Leave them alone. It is as simple as that. And I didn't actually mean to go into a rant here. That just kind of naturally happened because I mentioned AEW. But that's just my stance on it. And I'm all pumped up now. I can feel the blood boiling in my body. I need a bit of the bubbly to calm my nerves. We'll leave that there. We'll leave the rant, because I honestly could just rant about that for ages, and I might do on a future episode. I'll bring somebody on, and we'll discuss the whole WWE fans versus AEW fans versus every other wrestling company that is different to theirs that they follow. But pointless. It's a pointless thing. Wrestling fans just like wrestling, please. But let's get away from that. Before we head into our chat with today's guests, who are the B+ players, the drummer of the B+ players, we'll get into that later on. But first, before we do, we need to get into some Raw and Smackdown highlights, kicking off with Monday Night Raw. Steph, lead us in.
Welcome to Monday Night Raw!
After a lull last week for Raw, it came back with a bang this week, and I'm more than satisfied with my with Raw's offering this week. It's a lot better. There was more. Last week I don't think I had any highlights that weren't matches, but this week I have plenty. In fact, most of them are based around stuff that didn't happen within a match. So let's get straight into my highlights. My first one and I think this is pretty unanimous. During the contract signing, AJ Styles, Gallows and Anderson, the OC came down to the ring, interrupted the whole thing before Braun had a chance to sign that contract. I think this whole thing is weird, by the way. I don't see the point in having AJ and Gallows and Anderson in there's too much going on at the moment. See, I mean, we'll get into what kind of happened after the match they had, but there's just too many bodies within this feud. It's not bad what's happening. I think there's just too much going on, because who is feuding with AJ for the US title? Every championship is supposedly being defended at Clash of Champions, but as far as I'm aware, not only does AJ Styles not have a feud or anything going on right now over the US title, he doesn't actually have a match advertised for Clash of Champions. It's just all weird. It's all weird, but I digress. The highlight for me is AJ Styles telling Michael Cole to shut up. That popped me. And the crowd loved it as well. Shut up or I'll knock your teeth down your throat. I think he spoke for a lot of us there. There's a lot of Michael Cole haters in the world, and they all gave AJ Styles an air 5 through their TV screens. It was funny. It popped me. But moving on from that, obviously we had the match, which obviously came out of this little segment. But then it was the actual heel beatdown that came afterwards. I actually thought it was well done, and it kind of can't even speak. Contradicting myself when I said, there's too many bodies in this thing. This whole segment was effective. So you had the beatdown of, Seth and Braun, kind of making them a little bit sympathetic. And then, of course, Braun accidentally hits Seth whilst he was doing his little loop-de-loop around the ring. But then Rudolph came out from the back, and they inserted themselves into it. So you can see what I mean. Like, there's so many little feuds going on here. It's hard to keep track of what exactly is going on. But the actual segment itself was very effective. Everybody kind of shined, like the heels anyway. Even Rudolph, who I'm still struggling to warm to, but maybe they'll do a bar on me. But then again, I always did like Cesaro and Sheamus more than I like Ziggler and Rude. So maybe their rise, in my opinion, is going to be a lot harder to achieve than what Sheamus and Cesaro's was. But hey, I'm always willing to give these things a chance, but it's just not connecting with me at the moment. But the segment itself, great stuff. Really sold every feud that's going on within feuds, and it's fucking Inception with this stuff. It really is. And this is actually, it's a small highlight, but it's something that I quite liked, and it's the fact that in the first hour of the show, we had 3 matches. So we had the tag match at the start, Lacey, Natalya, and I believe it was Baron versus Cedric within that first hour. I might be wrong, but there was definitely 3 matches in that first hour. And, so not all the matches were great, but hell, we had 3 matches in the first hour of Monday Night Raw. We'll take that. And I like this renewed focus on in-ring stuff that has happened in the last couple of months. I'm all for it. Because ultimately, it's a wrestling show. Obviously, you need stuff around it to build stories and all that kind of stuff. But it's the matches that everything is centered on. That's why there's a ring in the middle of the arena for wrestling in. So it's good that the focus seems to be shifting from, promo segments, backstage stuff to, in-ring. And even if it's not necessarily like the longest matches in the world, the match quality is improved as well, which is really good to see. Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks. That segment was very, very well done. Becky was great, as she always is. She was saying about Sasha going away, taking a ball and going home, all this kind of stuff, building up to Sasha coming out. Saying she wants to do this face to face. And Sasha came out and actually cut a decent promo, and it didn't sound as robotic as it did when she did kind of her, reveal as to why she walked away from WWE. That seemed to be It seemed to be very robotic last week. I mean, people were saying it was a pipe bomb. Like I said last week, that was not a pipe bomb, people. I don't know why people thought it was. It was a bit strange, but it wasn't. But this week, it was a better promo. These two together, like, I'm really, really looking forward to this match. If you give them enough time, this is going to be the sleeper hit of Clash of Champions. I genuinely believe that, because they had a fantastic match at an NXT event. I can't remember. It wasn't a takeover. It was before takeovers were a thing, but I think it was like NXT The End or NXT Arrival, or whatever they were called back then. They had a really good match, so I'm hoping this mimics it, because the story is there, the build is there, and the build is fantastic. It's been a joy to watch. It's been a joy to watch. And of course, this feeds into, this whole promo section feeds into what happened later on in the night, but we will get there. Baron Corbin versus Cedric Alexander in the King of the Ring tournament quarterfinals. And we're already at the quarterfinals. This thing's moving along pretty rapidly. It was actually a really, really good match. Baron Corbin has his haters, but Baron Corbin, I don't think personally, has looked any better than he did on Raw this week. He put in a really, really good effort against Cedric Alexander, and Cedric looked good as well. Cedric looked fantastic, actually. Even in defeat, Cedric looked great, and that's kind of the theme now with Cedric at the moment. He looked great in defeat against Drew McIntyre a few weeks back, and then now today, and the victories he's had, obviously he's looked great as well. So Cedric is being built up really well at the moment. It's really good to see. But Baron Corbin, I've said from the beginning, I like Baron Corbin. I can see why people don't, but I do like Baron Corbin. His moveset's great. I think his character is great. He's one of the only people that can generate natural heel heat. Like, he's a natural heel. People hate him. Like, genuinely hate him. He has that go-away heat. He's doing his job well. He's doing his job perfectly, you could argue. But this week, he seemed to step it up a gear. And I enjoyed the hell out of this match. I really did. And I'm not even that bothered about the outcome. Would I have liked Cedric to advance to the semifinals? Absolutely. But Baron Corbin, it makes me pine. I'd love to see Corbin get to the final. And everybody is like, oh, here we go. We're going to get King Corbin. And Corbin is one of the few people in this tournament that's left that would actually adopt that gimmick as well. He would wear the cape. He would wear the crown. He would carry around the scepter. He really would. I mean, I can see that happening. But if the likes of... if Gable, say, bests him and wins the King of the Ring tournament, what a moment that'll be. Big Gable fan. But hey, there's another person we'll get into very shortly. But no, really, really good match. Really good match. But my personal MVP from that match was Baron Corbin, because leaps and bounds. The Firefly Funhouse returned, much to my kids' complete happiness. As soon as that little song comes on, the little catchy song, they love it. They absolutely love it. I have to kind of turn them away when the Fiend comes out, but they love that little opening bit. They love... My eldest was saying "Yowie Wowie." Oh, never been so proud. It's my special little boy. But no, the Firefly Funhouse is back, and it was its usual great self. They seem to have gone away from the presentation of what it was before. Where you could actually the set where you had the door, the window, all that kind of stuff. Now it's all just based around a table. I don't know why they're doing that, but it doesn't really matter, because it's the content that is ultimately what we're looking at, and it was great. Bray Wyatt continues to prove that he can just knock out these, short little backstage, skits. He doesn't have to come down to the ring or anything to remain effective. Biggest point coming from this was the potential Bray Wyatt versus whoever is the Universal Champion coming out of Clash of Champions against them at Hell in a Cell. Oh boy, the Fiend in Hell in a Cell gunning for the Universal Championship. Oh boy, I actually think next week I might actually look into that a little bit deeper. as my opening segment kind of thing. But I can't wait for that. If that does indeed happen, I cannot wait for that, because you couldn't really find somebody more deserving at the moment. He's knocked it out of the park from the moment that Firefly Funhouse debuted. He hasn't missed a step. He hasn't missed a step. And he hadn't missed a step this week either, with the return of the Firefly Funhouse, which is exactly why it is a highlight. Finally, the best is saved till last. And of course, because it was the last thing that happened on Raw, Bayley is a heel. Bayley turned heel on Becky Lynch. And the moment, it's whoa. Mind blown. It was hinted at earlier on in the show with her little promo she did backstage, a little interview. But coming into the match, I wasn't sensing it. I didn't see anything coming. And then Sasha, she went to attack, or she did attack Becky with a chair. And Bayley came in to grab the chair away from her. And it was kind of that moment when you saw that little smirk, that little evil smirk that we didn't know Bayley was capable of. And then bam, she started absolutely smashing Becky with that chair. And everybody was going nuts for it. Everyone loved it. And they should love it, because you could argue that Bayley, as a babyface, has got stale. She'll never reach the heights, babyface-wise, of what she had in NXT. Which that is a shame, because they were some heights. They really were. But now she has this new lease of life as a heel, just like Sasha. I'll be interested to see how this goes. I think it muddles up a little bit of the the character alignments within the women's division, but at this point I'm not really that bothered about that. Maybe I will if things stop making sense, but for now, yeah, I am more than happy to follow this Bayley heel turn, and it was really, really well done. And that's the most important thing. You can turn somebody heel just for the sake of turning them heel, but this kind of had something behind it. She didn't want to be overshadowed by Becky. She wants to be the best women's champion in the company, and she's let Becky kind of know that that is what she wants to achieve, and she did so with a steel chair. So there you go. But that was Raw for me this week. Really, really enjoyed it. I really did. It was so much better than last week. A return to form. But what did you guys think of Raw this week? Well, here's a couple of tweets, as I always do every single week. Bell to Bells said, "Oh, finally! Bayley has made her heel turn, turning on Becky with a folding chair. Sasha is waiting in the corner, approvingly. Looks like Boss and Hug Connection is back, but probably with less hugs." Yeah, I actually just like the tweet. That's why I've included it, especially that last note. But yeah, I'm more than happy to see Bayley and Sasha paired again, because I love them as the Boss and Hug Connection. I've loved them. Anything they do together, I've liked more or less, apart from all the weird therapy stuff. And yeah, that was a bit weird. But just put them together, because it works, and it's definitely working now. Steven says, let me get his actual thing. Awesome Fanatic. There you go. Bayley has turned heel, so another Bayley tweet. Monday Night Raw closed its show in a great way. Again, the format of this show of the last month or so has been a welcome change. Agreed, Steven. Absolutely agreed. I like the way that it went off the air with Bayley still smashing Becky in the back with a chair. I like that. And you're right. There are tweaks that have been made to the show to make it feel a little bit different, and the show has become better because of it. Absolutely. The Offended Podcast said, if WWE is really going to do this heel turn with Bayley, then they better fucking go all out with it and not hold back, or play the BS teasing game where she's bad for like 2 weeks and then realizes, this isn't who I am, and goes back to face. You could just see it happening, can't you? You could, if it happens, you'd be like, well, kind of expected it. But no, I do agree with you there. I really do hope that that isn't the case, and they really do stick with this, even if it's just a kind of on the fence kind of thing, but more heel rather than more heel, less face. I'd be happy with that, because to lose all the huggers and all that kind of stuff straight away, it would be like, whoa. But No, actually, you know what? Screw it. Do it. Just make her wear black to the ring. Just change her up straight away and just maintain it. Commit to it. You've had a great moment on Raw where she's turned heel. Commit to it because we all loved it. Walk with Joe said, if it's true and the WWE is pushing for a Fiend Universal Championship match at Hell in a Cell, I'm all for it. But if they screw it up and have Bray a pin, that would ruin all the work they put into building this character. Absolutely. So I don't think that they would be willing to put Bray in this situation if he was there to eat a pin. Does it make the thing predictable? Yeah, I guess it does in a way, but there are ways to end matches without somebody taking a pin. I don't know how WWE will go about it. I guess watch this space, but you're absolutely right. If Bray loses by eating the pin by whoever it is, Seth or Braun, yeah, everything up to this point or up to that point will feel like a bit of a waste of time because you don't want to derail the momentum that the Fiend has at such an early stage because we've only seen him once in a match. And of course, this will be the second time unless something happens in between. It's not the time for the Fiend to be getting bested. It really isn't. But there you go. That's what you guys thought of Raw. Or certain aspects of Raw anyway. But what did this certain individual think of Raw? We have another voice clip this week for Raw. The clean finish over on Twitter. He always seems to be on the show. You'll always hear his name, so you might be familiar with it. But this time, instead of a tweet, I have him in voice form, which is really good. I'm really glad that he came on board for it. So here's his thoughts on Monday Night Raw.
How's it going, everyone? This is the clean finish here. Yes, this is my actual human voice for all my followers out there. You can finally put a voice to the man behind the keyboard. Perhaps one day I'll post a picture of my face, and I assure you it is more dashing than Cody Rhodes. Anyway, these are my thoughts on Monday Night Raw. It's a pretty decent episode, actually. King of the Ring matches were pretty awesome again. They've been pretty great all round, really. It's an interesting finish to the Joe Ricochet match. We'll see how it goes with the Triple Threat. It's a kind of new dynamic, but I kind of like it. Next week's match will be pretty good. Again, I see Corbin coming out winning this one just to piss everybody off. We had a Firefly Funhouse, which is always amazing. People saying Bray winning the Universal title might be too soon. I don't know. He's been consistently amazing for a long time, even before this Firefly Funhouse stuff. So with that addition and how great the promos have been, I'm more than happy for him to have it. I think he can do wonderful things. And the Firefly Funhouses we'll see with the title, I'm sure he'll pull something amazing out of the bag. One thing I didn't like was the use of Cesaro this week. The momentum he had after NXT UK Cardiff was incredible. So I don't know why he was squashed to The Miz so easily. It doesn't really make sense to me considering the other people he could have used. I mean, he could have even used McIntyre to lose to The Miz just to make The Miz look good. So it's a bit of an odd booking there. We get a bit more Stone Cold Steve Austin coming up soon, which is, it's never a bad thing to see Austin there. And of course, the biggest thing to come out of Raw was Banks and Bayley turning heel, which is just, oh my God, how fantastic was that? I really was completely surprised with that. I did not see that coming. I never really warmed to them as a tag team. I don't know what it was about them. It just felt really forced. I preferred them in a feud. I was really pushing for that feud for them to happen again. I thought now Banks is evil Banks with their blue hair. It's going to be, they're going to have some real build to this where they have a really good match and a really good feud. But instead, they're now joining together and Bayley's turned heel, which is just, as I said, say goodbye to the hugger and say hello to the slugger because it's going to be fantastic. So Raw was pretty decent. So thanks so much, Dits, for having me on. Please follow at Dits on Wrestling for more great content from him, and follow me at @theclean_finish for more content from me. Cheers.
Look at that. Clean finish there, just putting me over during his own voice clip. He didn't have to do that. Very nice of him. Very nice of him. Yeah, that was a really good voice clip, actually. Makes me actually want you on the show as a guest in the near future. So hopefully you might hear the clean finish on the show in an extended capacity, which would be fantastic. And that's what this is all about now. As I say all the time, these voice clips are for people, like the clean finish said. I wish I knew his name. So I'd say the clean finish every time. Like he said, nobody has heard his voice. You only know what he types on Twitter. So this is, a platform for people just like him to come on and actually voice their opinions, to be heard. So yeah, great clip from him this week. Of course, we have a SmackDown one coming up as well later on in the show, but that is the Raw side of things. So let's get into some SmackDown Live, shall we?
Welcome everyone to SmackDown Live!
Well, say hello to another great edition of SmackDown Live. What a great show it was. It really was. My highlights genuinely do not do this show justice. I have 4 highlights. Yeah, that's not doing it justice, but really, really good show. Actually, no, sorry. Scratch that. 5 highlights because I've left one blank by accident. So there you go. My notes are shite. No, it was a really, really good show this week. A clean sweep for WWE with their, takeover show at the weekend. Then they've had, Raw's really good. SmackDown's really good. Like I said at the opening, I haven't watched NXT or NXT UK. I'll be watching that this weekend. So let's hope that they knock it out the park as well for that clean sweep to happen. I'm sure, they will all be good shows. So good week for WWE all in all. But here's why SmackDown was great. I love the opening. I think it was obvious that Bayley was going to come out and kind of address what happened on Monday Night Raw. And to be honest, the reason that we got was, it was okay. These kind of things, is that really why? Are you just absolutely BSing us right now with this? But Bayley just wanted to be loyal to Sasha. And you could see a little bit of her old character. I mean, you could refer to her as an old character now, I guess. Creeping in there, saying that she wants to be a role model for the kids, and showing how loyalty to somebody is a good thing. So you kind of had a little bit of that baby face in there, but ultimately, I bought it. I bought what she said. I thought it was a decent promo. I don't think Bayley's been a tremendous mic worker, but for exactly what it needed to be, it was a good solid promo. And the stuff that happened afterwards kind of cemented everything that happened on Monday. Charlotte came out, and I mentioned this during the Raw highlights. The dynamic now with the women's division, and who is heel and who is face, and now we've got heel versus heel at Clash of Champions with Charlotte versus Bayley, but now Sasha's kind of involved in that, but she's also got stuff going on with Becky. I don't know how it's going to work. Like, Charlotte should not turn face. She should not turn face at all. She's a perfect heel. Bayley, fresh heel, still maybe with some face aspects to her, but that is dying away. It's dying away. Her babyface days are numbered. So how that works at Clash of Champions, I don't know, because face versus face works because there's that kind of respect between the competitors. But with heel versus heel, it's always more difficult for the fans to get behind it. I don't know how it's going to play out, but that didn't take away from how good the segment was. Obviously, Charlotte came out, kept her stuff short and sweet, and Sasha came out, and she knew what. Again, this is. I look back to Jerry Lawler getting attacked by the Fiend. This is 2 bouts of common sense that we've had in WWE in the space of like 2 or 3 weeks. Charlotte knew exactly what was about to go down as soon as Sasha came out, so she threw the first punch to try and get an upper hand. She could have stood there like any old wrestler, just kind of like, okay, this is going to happen. I'm going to get my ass kicked and just take it. But no, she went for it. She went for Bayley, but ultimately got beaten down, and got beaten down with a chair, no less. This whole thing is a highlight, don't get me wrong, but there is a downside, albeit very, very slight. Bayley's chair shots are crap. Like, there doesn't seem to be any force, any power. You watch Bayley's chair shots and then look at Sasha's, and you can see the difference massively. So she needs to go to chair school and kind of sort that out. It doesn't need. I don't know if she's just worried about hurting people. It's kind of like it kind of harkens back to her Extreme Rules match with Alexa Bliss when she got the cane and just didn't do anything with it because she didn't want to use it. I kind of get that vibe with this. I don't think that's any way linked, but that's just the kind of vibe that I'm getting. Like, she's very reluctant to do that sort of stuff, whether it's her character or whether that's just her as a person. But hey, I don't really care. It was a good segment, and it did exactly what it needed to do. Solidified Sasha and Bayley as a unit now. So I think that that's going to be the case moving forward. And maybe Sasha will hold that Raw Women's Championship at Clash of Champions, and maybe Bayley will retain her SmackDown Women's Championship at Clash of Champions. That'll be a good sight. These two together again, this time as heels, both as Women's Champion. Interesting dynamic. Now, on Raw, or the Raw highlights, I mentioned how improved Baron Corbin was. And this feeds into another match here on SmackDown. Elias. This is the best match Elias has ever put on in a wrestling ring. Maybe he's done, outstanding stuff on house shows that I haven't seen, but TV-wise at least, like, this is the best match that he's ever been in. And I'm, it's a big call, but I do believe it's the best. He looked like a superstar in this match. He justified his existence at this point in the tournament. Obviously, the way he got here with the Kevin Owens and Shane angle, disappointing, very, very disappointing. And you kind of, when you saw Elias versus Ali, you were kind of, this tournament really has kind of been based on, really good match quality. But Elias really, really stepped up this week. I mean, I've liked Elias, since the beginning, but in ring, I've not really clicked. But the way he did everything this week, the brutality he showed with Ali, it was fantastic. It really was. So I'm hoping this is the Elias that we see going forward. This is the Elias that we see in the semifinals next week. I don't know why this can't be the standard, because he was on fire. And Ali himself, it was kind of actually mirrored the Corbin-Cedric match. You had Corbin and Baron, Jesus Christ, imagine them two being two separate entities. If it was Baron and Elias, two guys that many people don't really think of as being, great in-ring talents versus, two high flyers, two exciting wrestlers in Cedric and Ali. So they kind of mirrored themselves, both in, that respect and match quality. It was a really, really good match. It wasn't the best of the show. That happened later on, but it was a very, very good match. So highlight for me this week, absolutely. FTRKO. What do those letters stand for? I'll leave that up to you guys to decide. Maybe it's fuck the RKO, which wouldn't make any sense, but that's kind of where FTR comes from. Fuck the revival. I don't know. But I'm really digging these guys being together, Orton and the revival. Did it kind of? I think there should have been a bit more from Kofi. He's just constantly getting beaten down. The New Day are, they're separated at the moment through, injuries, as a result of these guys. It's just making things look a little bit predictable. And I only say that because of just how WWE are. We kind of know that they like their 50-50 booking. They like their momentum switches when it comes from TV translating over to pay-per-view. So if we're going off that, that Kofi's retaining at Clash of Champions. However, if Orton does pick up the win, then it kind of justifies seeing this every single week, I think. But seeing him with the Revival, though, it's a lot of fun. I'm glad that he seems to be having a good time. You know, Orton that likes what he's doing and is invested in what he's doing is the best Orton that we can get. You know, I've made it known on here that I am a big Randy Orton fan, so when I see that he's invested, I get excited. I generally do, because it means that we're, you know, potentially getting some good stuff out of him. So, you know, the segment itself, maybe not the best that it could have been. There could have been, you know, little ways to, you know, kind of freshen it up a little bit rather than the typical beatdown. But, you know, as in terms of the FTR RKO, Revival and Orton together, that's the highlight for me, and I hope that continues, you know, away from Clash of Champions as well, because it's working, it's clicking. There's no reason to call time on it just yet. Then we go into the final match of the evening, the best match of the evening, my favorite match of the entire week, TV wise. Gable versus Andrade. I'm not even going to comment on this whole shortness thing with Gable, because it's ridiculous. Samoa Joe blasted him, you know, backstage for being short, whereas Joe is literally an inch taller than him. The whole thing is just stupid. Gable in ring is what I'm all about, and he had a lot of fans in this match. Like, people were really behind him, and I haven't seen that with Gable yet. He has his fans, don't get me wrong, but this week it was very vocal. And, you know, people were really gunning for him to win this thing. And, of course, he did. In a very, very good match against Andrade. Some amazing little spots. The thing just flowed perfectly. It was you know, technical prowess, you know, throughout it. Germans, you know, the Three Amigos were thrown in there. Moonsaults. Gable's moonsault is unbelievable. It seems like it's much the same, like, it's not obviously the same move, but Montez Ford, his frog splash, he's in the air for like 2 hours. But Gable, he floats. Like, I don't know how he does it. He just kind of floats with the moonsault. It's incredible, incredibly athletic. You know, and that's why I've been such a fan of Gable for so long. People are going to complain that Andrade, you know, has again been denied, you know, a chance to shine again. But honestly, I'm not that bothered, because I'm a fan of Gable. You know, he is great in the ring. It's not like he's crap. You know, he's very, very good. So he can believably beat Andrade. You know, so that's not a problem. I just think people want Andrade to, you know, starts showing some success, and he will. Andrade is a fantastic talent. He's one of my favorite in WWE right now, and I'm sure at some point in the very near future we're going to see a sustained push, if you will. But he looked strong in defeat. This is the thing. Like, you know, Cedric, you know, people saying, Corbin went over Cedric on Raw, but Cedric looked strong in defeat. So in some cases, it doesn't matter all that much. Then we come to the main event. Well, not the main event, but the main segment of the show. The storyline is a bit weird. And Eric Rowan is now the guy who, you know, attacked Reigns. We got a bit of a weird way that we got there, but, you know, ultimately that's where we are. His beatdown, though, was very enjoyable. I don't remember the last time I heard Eric Rowan properly on the mic. Like, he had some decent mic time this week. I actually don't think he did that bad. Beat down Roman and then beat down Daniel Bryan at the end after getting slapped in the face. Why we're getting... I mean, obviously it looked like we were going to get Roman versus, you know, Daniel Bryan at Clash of Champions, but we're actually getting Reigns versus Rowan. I don't know how that match is going to go. You know, obviously Rowan's not known, you know, to be a fantastic, you know, wrestler in terms of, you know, these singles kind of stuff. In tag matches, fantastic, but when it's just him, the jury's out, I guess, but you never know. You never know. It could be a very, very good match. But I enjoyed it. It was a good beatdown, good showcase of Rowan. It's the best he's looked in a very long time. So, thumbs up from me. SmackDown as a whole is 2 thumbs up from me. But did SmackDown get thumbs up from you guys? So let's get into a couple of these tweets. Reynolds said, well, SmackDown Live thoughts. The Reigns mystery attacker reveal is dumb and not worth getting into. This will be in the conversation for worst angle of the year. Not on the performers either. Daniel Bryan is doing what he can and Reigns playing his part well. The story just sucks. I can actually see where you're coming from. Like, this thing had a lot of potential, some of that wasted, but, you know, I think there is some good that's come out of this thing. You know, I don't think it's all been bad, but it's been more bad than good. For me, it's just a loss of potential. That's the thing that's really hurt with this thing. You know, getting to the point where they are now. You know, Eric Rowan had him as the attacker all along, but it just seems like getting to that point, you know, has been a little rough. There you go. Manuel, Emma_V2 says, this Roman storyline has really done a lot for so many performers and feels like there's still some left in the tank. Need more of this. So that kind of echoes what I just said. You know, there's there is stuff that has happened on this little journey to Eric Rowan being revealed as the attacker that has been good. You know, Buddy Murphy has had some time to shine, so stuff like that. It hasn't all been bad. You know, Daniel Bryan has looked great. Eric Rowan is now having a chance to shine. Reigns has been fantastic. It's had its moments. And it had, just like what I've just said, it's not been all bad. Okay? Planet Jobbers, they've said Fire and Desire should get the belts just for actually having a tag finisher. Yeah, I mean, that tag, I actually really like that. It kind of reminded me of the Ascension's Wasteland move. I think that's what it was called. It kind of had that vibe to it. But it's nice. I wouldn't look past Mandy Rose and Sonya getting the belts. I really wouldn't, because they've been a team for so long now. Even before the tag championships were a thing. So maybe it's time to put the belts around their waist. Let's see. We'll find out at Clash of Champions, because chances are that's who we're going to have against Alexa and Nikki over there. Laser Panther said, I really hate that there's no separation between Raw and SmackDown Live now. So we keep getting the same people both nights and miss tons of other great people. Completely agreed. I mean, this harkens back to, the whole wild card rule thing, which, the conversation on that seems to have died a death, really. It rarely gets mentioned, but obviously it's still happening on screen. There is a way. It's getting stale. And it has been stale for a very long time. But I think we're getting to that point now. There are rumors out there where there's going to be a draft next month, and the rosters will be completely split down the middle again, and this won't be a thing going forward. So fingers crossed. That's what we get. Reese Longland said, watching Andrade versus Gable reminds me of Kurt Angle versus Eddie Guerrero. It's funny that you should say that, Reese, because I actually thought that myself. Even with just seeing the Three Amigos, and then Gable's German suplexes, it definitely has that feel. And you watch that match and you see how great it was, and you kind of see the similarities between Eddie and Angle from back in the day, and you kind of want Gable and Andrade to do more with each other going forward. I mean, I can't see why that can't happen. Come out of King of the Ring, have them two, feuding, and we'll have that. It'll have that nostalgic feel to it. I mean, Eddie versus Kurt Angle was like some of the best stuff from the early noughties in WWE. So maybe we can relive some of that magic. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Oh, Reese, another tweet from you. I've liked two of yours here. Shelton Benjamin is the most talented jobber in the world. I guess you could say that. I love Shelton Benjamin. I think he's really good. All the way back to his OVW days, I've been a fan of Shelton. So, I guess he is there as, that experience. He is... Yeah, I mean, he's a jobber to the stars. He's somebody that people can jump over, hurdle over on their way to a bigger push. And I think Shelton's more than happy to be that guy, to be the veteran that gives people that little rub, shall we say? But yeah, there you go. That was SmackDown Live. They were your tweets. But of course, there is another voice clip coming up. This time it's Paul from the Badlands podcast. Great podcast, by the way. I mean, I know I've mentioned that earlier on the show, but it really is. Let's see what he had to say about SmackDown Live.
Hey Dits, it's your friend the Rain Counter, Paul from Badlands on Brainbuster Radio. Just dropping in to give you my thoughts on this week's SmackDown Live. Daniel Bryan may have wanted an apology, but WWE are unapologetically pulling out all the stops as October the 4th marches ever closer. This was a jam-packed, high-octane episode with a lot of good matches, punctuated by some pretty damn hot promos, if you ask me. King of the Ring matches delivered once again, Elias vs Ali being my favourite of the two. It was fast, it was brutal in places, had some terrific spots, such as Ali's backflip from the turnbuckle to the outside, followed up by a super kick as Elias was flying through the air himself, and Elias's heinous ramming of Ali's head into the corner of the safety barrier. Not something I recall seeing that much before in WWE. Really liked it. That said, that may have been my favourite match, but the closing moments of Gable versus Andrade were absolutely sublime. And a crowd that were on fire all night, really, after the opening segment between Bayley, Charlotte and Sasha lit a fire under them, peaked at when Gable was victorious. I'm loving the underdog story from Gable, overcoming those who were bullying him over his height, and the prospect of a Gable versus Samoa Joe final, which was kind of hinted here in a backstage segment. Is tantalizing, kind of seeing that bullied person versus the ultimate bully. I'd quite like to see that. Speaking of Joe, as I said, promos were mostly superb on the night, and Samoa Joe, Aleister Black, Randy Orton, Daniel Bryan all showed that being given a script just doesn't matter. It's all in the delivery, it's all in the body language, it's all in conveying that threat, and they all did that fantastically. Randy Orton in particular is back to his sinister best. I'd say the opening and closing segments were a little confusing for me. It's great to see Charlotte, Bayley and Sasha interact, especially when they're all being presented kind of so strong and so fierce. But I'm not really sure who's playing what role in that storyline yet. Also, Rowan, Roman and Bryan, I'm not really sure what Rowan's motivations are. Again, I'm not really sure who we're supposed to be liking in this scenario. Who's the good guy, who's the bad guy? So the beginning and end confused me a little, but these storylines are in their formative stages, and I'm sure it's all going to crystallize and come together in the coming weeks and months, and it will be me having to apologize for even criticizing it in this last minute of my rant. Final thought from me: I am absolutely loving the high heel arms race going on at the moment. Sasha, with her Monday night effort, was impressive. Charlotte looked the better in the opening segment tonight, but then Zelina Vega basically came out on stilts. Where are they going to go next? I have no idea. Follow me at Rain Counter. Cheers, Dits. Speak to you soon.
And there we go. That was Paul from Badlands with his voice clip for SmackDown Live this week. Good bloke. And look to see him on the show in the very near future. He's going to come on for the Tag Topics series, which has laid dormant for I'd say about 2 months now. We will be getting back into Tag Topics. Do not worry. For those that listen to the one and only episode that exists, that I did with Josh Robinson a couple of months ago about the wildcard rule when that had just come out. So there you go. That thing exists. Paul's going to come back. So thank you very much, Paul, for supplying that voice clip today. But that means, now that we got Raw and SmackDown out of the way, it's time for that guest portion of the show. We're going to bring on Adrian from the B Plus Players. Really, really fun chat this. But before we get into it, usually we go for that little guitar-y segue that I've got. But having a musical guest comes with its benefits. So I will be playing the first track from their latest album, Yes. This track is called B Plus. and it's, of course, all about Daniel Bryan. So enjoy this as we segue into my chat with Adrian from the B Plus Players.
Started out as a curtain jerk jobber, made my way to mid-card father. Went to Japan and earned my name. This place is a different game. Say I'm just a B-plus player, but I'll show all the naysayers when I kick you in the throat, where the flying go. And I say yes to every victory I am grabbing. And I say yes because I am the American Dragon. And I say yes to being the best because I must. And I say yes to being B-plus. I'm popping bigger than you ever saw. Fans help me occupy Raw. The authority said that I'm too small. Mania's where I'll show them all. I'll answer any challenge that beckons. Just give me more than 18 seconds. 'Cause if you think I'm letting go, the answer is hell no. And I say yes to every victory I am grabbing. And I say yes because I am the American Dragon. And I say yes to being the best because I must. And I say yes to being B-plus. Undervalued, underused, I've been knocked down, but I refuse to walk away. And I will never rest. Chop 'em down at any size, and for my fans, I'll earn my prize. You ask me if I'm ready for this test, and I say yes. And I say yes to every victory I am grabbing. And I say yes because I am the American Dragon. And I say yes to being the best because I must. And I say yes. And I say yes to every victory I am grabbing. And I say yes because I am the American Dragon. And I say yes to being the best because I must. And I say yes to being B-plus.
Hey there, once again, it's time for that guest portion of the show, and as you just heard, that was a track from the B Plus Players' latest album. Yes, it is so good, and you're going to hear another one at the end of this chat as well. But thankfully today, I am joined by the drummer and producer of B Plus Players, Adrian. Hello, buddy. How you doing?
Great. How you doing?
I am fan-dabby-dozy and more happy that you're on here. Because I saw, it was literally just by chance, fellow Canadian for you as well. I don't know if you're a listener of his stuff, Smark and Friends podcast.
Oh, yeah. Yep, good pal.
Yeah, I saw him share your pinned tweet with your latest album, and he said, "This is a fun thing to do. This is a fun thing to listen to." And I was like, I have to check this out. Listen to it. Within 2 songs, I think I'd already messaged you to say, do you want to come on and talk about the album?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when I want to kickstart, just the obvious way to kickstart this, because obviously you are the band, you are the B Plus Players. How did that whole thing come together?
Just to start this wrestling band, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It started with me and Joel, the guitar player, and he sings most of the songs and writes most of the songs, or half the songs. We just wanted to start a band. It had no real set direction at that point. And then he wrote a couple songs, and he wrote I believe he wrote DDP first, and like, cool, all right. Oh, you like wrestling? Cool, me too. That's awesome. And then he wrote Roddy Piper, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, nah, we're screw those other songs. We're just gonna write these wrestling songs because I'm a slave to the gimmick.
I love that because that's the thing. I think if it's got to be natural, I guess. Like if you stumble across your own niche, and it is a niche. Doing wrestle rock, but it's something that I haven't seen that much of. So you guys are entering a very small market where you can stand out, which is perfect. Because I only know maybe 3 other acts, like just me personally, 3 other acts that cover wrestling as their sole direction. I mean, I don't know how many you guys know.
Like one of the main things that I really wanted to accomplish with this band, and of course happened immediately, was getting on the Art of Wrestling with Colt Cabana. So he did play a different wrestling song every single week. So it wasn't necessarily all bands that dedicated their whole being to being about wrestling, but like every single, like I forget how many episodes he had, but let's say 250 or something like that. If not more, probably more than that. Every single week he had a different song about wrestling, which is friggin' insane.
And he had enough people to cover that as well. That just shows how sheltered I am when it comes to this stuff. Because I think I'm actually going to have to go and check out his podcast because I've always known it was good, but I never actually realized he did that. So that's piqued my interest.
Every week, and then it touched my heart that I love this man so much. I met him like nervously at a show in Halifax once, and he was so cool. And then I just saw him sitting there by himself at the table, and we just shot the shit for 20 minutes, and that was awesome. And then when he goes to play our song on his show, he talks about that experience of meeting me, which was awesome. And then he independently researched where we were releasing our album the next day. So like on the Thursday he was playing the song, but the album was coming out on the Friday, and he let the world know about Gus's Pub, the tiny venue we were playing at to release the show that I didn't even tell him about.
That's insane. I would love something like that. So just it's the little things, especially with somebody so well known like within wrestling, to actually go ahead and put in the effort and do that for you. I mean, that's a rub.
Yeah. So every time I see the guy now, it's just like immediately like hug or whatever, and then I gave him a sticker at the last time I saw him in New York, and he immediately puts it on his briefcase or merch case or whatever it was.
So you're pretty much best friends with Colt Cabana.
I think that's how this goes, right?
Well, to be fair, you always have him to rely on. If you need to get something out there, just give him a call and say, "Look, mate, new stuff's dropped. Push it."
Unfortunately, I don't know if you know this, but his podcast is ending. He's bringing it to a halt.
Oh, really?
After all these years, yeah. It's a little. It was a very sad that he was putting in the sound bites himself of just like, no, Colt, don't say it. Yes, it's coming to an end.
Is it for a sad reason though?
It's just it's burnt out. Like he changed the format to just like kind of documentary style, where he would just like go talk to somebody for 10 minutes as opposed to a hour-long interview, and then it just like it just takes a lot of friggin' effort out of him. So
that's a shame, but hopefully he keeps the archives up for all those wrestling music that he's played. I need to check that out.
It will be on Patreon. So
happy with that. Oh god, I didn't even realize that this is why. I think people have probably gathered this. Like, I mean, this is my fourth. I'm going to say my fifth guest that I've had on. I do the smallest part of research that I can possibly do, just so it's like I'm the listener, but I just happen to be directing the flow of where this is going. So yeah, stuff like that, it just blows my mind. Like my guest last week had dinner with, he had lunch with Bret Hart, and that blew me away. Wow. I was like, what is going on? How do I not know this stuff? Like, why didn't you tell me this before? And that would have been the focal point.
Oh yeah.
So obviously with the band, you focused on the wrestle rock. Is that where you're kind of steering the ship now? That's what you're always going to intend to do, or are you maybe looking at branching out at some point in the future?
Hell no.
Perfect
this
answer.
band, the B+ players, will always be wrestling songs, whatever they may be. I don't know if you know this as well. We've done a couple podcast themes now. Filthy Four, the Brian Alvarez and Tom Lawler show.
Mm-hmm.
So we every episode of that opens with our theme, and they often talk about us and stuff like that. So like hearing Lance Storm call us the B- players was kind of a fun little tidbit, and the Marty and Sarah theme. So like we're always open to like fun little projects like that on the side. But as far as our like, it will always be wrestling related, straight up.
So I like that. I'm in quite good company with these podcasts you're attached to. So you got Colt Cabana, you got Lance Storm, and then you've got Dits on wrestling. People are gonna be like, huh? But I love that you're just willing to stick to Wrestle Rock, because why wouldn't you? Like, this is obviously a passion to you. So and that's the thing, you're merging two passions together, which is perfect. And you can see that, like, or you can hear that, sorry, when you're listening to the songs, because like every single one has its own little story. I mean, I haven't played it on the show today, but if you go check out AJ Styles off the new album, it's like a love letter to AJ Styles. It's so it's funny. It's fun, and that's the main thing that I took away from it. And it's what Smark said as well when he put the post up on Twitter. He said it's fun, and that's the main feeling I got from when I first listened to that and had my first playthrough in the car. I was like, yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you.
The songs are catchy as hell as well. Like I go around the house and I go around singing the good majority of them just to myself. And my wife's just like, "What are you doing?" I said, honestly, you would not understand. Even if I tried to explain this to you, you would not understand.
Yeah.
There's a lot
of like tidbits in there that like it's a 4-second line, but would take an hour to explain to somebody who didn't know what you were talking about.
And I feel that kind of sums up wrestling as well.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Actually, you'll find as well that I do go off on tangents, so I do apologize in advance. But you've just, I was going to ask you this at the start of the show, completely forgot, so I'm going to ask you now. As a wrestling fan, of course, what did you think of this weekend's like massive, like just wrestling everywhere? You had NXT takeover or NXT UK takeover. You had All Out and you had Royal Quest. Did you manage to watch any of them?
Well, of course I watched All Out. I'm all about that. I didn't get to any Royal Quest, and I watched a bit of Takeover Cardiff. I'm just trying so hard not to let wrestling completely take over my life, so I have like something interesting to talk about maybe to somebody who's not a fan of wrestling. So I try to like just shut like 205 and like UK out of my brain just because there's just too much of it, and to try to commit myself to that much more per week is it's just a lot.
It is a very tall ask, because the only reason I really I've started watching NXT UK. I mean, I'm from the UK, so obviously that helps. But I actually went to the show live, so I thought I need to actually watch this and catch up. So I did, and then I've just fallen in love with it. So I will continue to watch it, but it's just adding an extra hour of wrestling into my week, which is, as I love wrestling, don't get me wrong, but it is painful to watch that amount of wrestling. And like you said, you throw your 205s in there and your NXT UKs, like it's just it's overwhelming. And NXT going to 2 hours now as well. It's just
AEW the show coming out, and
and I'm assuming that's going to go 2 hours as well.
It will.
So it's too much. It'd be nice to say that we're spoiled, but at the same time, it's just I can't deal with it. Cannot deal with it. So let's get that tangent out of the way. There will be another tangent, don't you worry. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to say there's been 2 albums to this point. So you had Gorilla Position and this latest release, Yes. Is that right?
That is right. We also had the standalone single for Mandible Claws.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Honestly, that is my favorite track of you guys. I love it.
I was pretty happy with like how it came out, since it, like the other 2 albums we were working on like all at once, whereas that one we just focused on just releasing that one. So I was really happy with how it turned out. And I don't know if you know that Mick Foley retweeted it, so he said he was humbled by it. So that was a pretty big deal for us.
You keep name dropping people left, right, and center here.
Oh, there's more.
One day I would love it. In like 2 years' time, you can name drop me in some conversation. Back in the day, Dits on Wrestling podcast. It might not even be a thing in 2 years' time. We'll see. But that's pretty cool because I remember listening to it. I thought, oh, this is really good. And I don't know what it was. I think for some reason I thought, I'm going to retweet this. And I think I did. I think I did actually retweet it. I was like, I hope that Mick Foley sees this, but he's already beaten me to it.
Yep.
And given you a glowing review as well.
Absolutely insane, yeah.
So is that the latest song, like chronologically, that you've recorded? I know obviously the Yes album came out this year, and that was last year. But is that the latest one you've actually brought together?
Mandible?
Yeah.
No, well, that came out between the two albums.
Because I think it's Spotify that's
yeah.
That for some reason
I put everything on Spotify at the same time. So.
That explains. There we go. Because I always find that Spotify kind of throws a bit of a hissy fit when stuff like that happens. You can't just like hone in on a date. Fozzy, that I actually got them. I gave them the heads up because I happened just type in Fozzy into Spotify, and some Spanish acoustic fella came up, and I was like, Are they coming up with some kind of like Spanish greatest hits album here? Like, this is really weird. And I messaged them on Facebook. I put the tweet out and I said, look, what's going on? And they went, yeah, we got in touch with Spotify and we got them to remove it. I was like, oh, there you go.
Not bad.
Don't know who that guy was, but he was going by the name of Fozzy. So any people from Spain listening to this, if you want to go check out the Spanish Fozzy, apparently he exists. So with the album, yes, like what's kind of like the story behind that? Was that just like a continuation of, because I believe Gorilla Position was 2016. I'm just going off your YouTube there when all those songs came together.
Yep. That's better than the information I have right now. That would be 2016, yes. So that Gorilla Position, the naming of that would be where you start. So that's where you start, is at the Gorilla Position.
I like it. See, you've looked into this. So it's been 3 years really between albums. So what was kind of like the story behind Yes? Was it just like, right, it's been 3 years, let's get something else out?
Really, it's just like we're me and Joel write pretty much all the songs. Michael wrote Mean Mark on this album, but other than that, we just it's just a natural progression of I write a song, we start playing it live. He writes a song, we start playing it live, and then once we started the recording process actually a very long time ago, and then we just became a little inactive for a little bit, and then we finally finished her up with 12 songs
and 12 very good songs. If I don't want to blow smoke just because you're on here, but genuinely, it is actually a very, very good listen. And this is how I actually base this, because obviously it is under the Wrestle Rock umbrella. I was listening to the album in the office today in preparation for the chat, and somebody actually came in and said, "What are you listening to?" And I said, "Oh, is these guys called the B Plus Players? They're a Wrestle Rock band from Canada." And his face kind of scrumpled up, and he went, "Sorry, Wrestle Rock from Canada? What are you talking about?" I said, "Look, the whole you won't understand. I'm not going to explain." He says, "Okay." He said, "I understand," but he said that song is actually pretty good. It was B plus. I think the solo had just kicked in as he walked through the door, which I mean, you just heard it just before we started chatting. I like the fact that it has that very hint of the Flight of the Valkyries in there.
Absolutely.
That is a nice touch.
Yeah.
So how long did that album take to put together?
Oh, well, as I mentioned, there was a bit of a hiatus in there. So it has been like we started writing it 3 years ago, and then like recording it. There was about a year that I didn't touch it. So
I mean, I think you can see it with like a few of the tracks, maybe like the AJ Styles one. You can kind of see like, obviously, because it starts off with his debut at the Royal Rumble, that kind of stuff. So you can see that through it, but obviously it doesn't matter because it's still a great song. So do you plan on releasing another album and not taking like 3 years to do it, or do you actually quite like having that gap because it gives you that much time to, you know, create the best thing that you possibly can?
It's really all about quality. So right now we only have one song done for the next album. So who knows how long it could take? Like, you were mentioning how long it So with songs like X-Pac and I believe Curtain Call, they both reference one day he'll be in the Hall of Fame. So we really had to get those tracks out before X-Pac went into the Hall of Fame. And we literally released X-Pac like 2 weeks before DX went into the Hall of Fame this year.
And this is where you tell me that he's heard that song and he's told you how great it is.
He said thank you. I don't know if he actually listened to it. We're not too proud of it anymore, but on the last album there was a pretty mean song about Xbox, so we don't know where our status falls with him.
Well, hopefully he listened to the first one and went, "What the fuck is this?" And then went to the second one and went, "Okay, fair enough." That the most recent song is actually a callback to that meeting with Cole Cabana, where I told him, I said, like, we wrote this mean song about Xbox. Do you think he would think it was funny? And he said, no, not at all. And I said, like, well, what, like, just, I don't know, just happy to be talking to him. Like, well, what do you think we should do? And he says, write a nice song about him. How about there's no such thing as Xbox Heat? Oh, wait, no, that's still pretty negative. And then we wrote a song called There's No Such Thing as Xbox Heat. And he acknowledged it.
Yeah, there you go.
Hopefully, I hope he did listen to it, and a small part of me hopes he listened to the one where you dissed him as well. I think he'd understand the joke, surely. He doesn't. Yeah. Well, saying that, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know X-Pac personally, but I don't know how he would take it, really. So when you do your live gigs and stuff, do you like kind of promote yourselves as Wrestle Rock?
Not really. I think most people around town know that that's what we are. But no, when you put our band name on a poster, it's just we are the B+ players. People ask why, and we tell them why. Other than that, we're just a rock band, and then people show up and we say, ha ha. I hope you like wrestling.
Honestly, I would love it if I was just sat in a pub, drinking a beer, and then I was like, there's a band playing tonight. Oh, great. There's a band playing. Love live music, especially in like intimate venues like that, like a pub or a bar. And then all of a sudden, you started singing about AJ Styles. I'd be like, whoa, hang on a minute. Let's put this point down and just focus over here. Like, I guess that would be a nice little surprise for people who are obviously, you know, big fans of wrestling.
Yeah, our big tall fan, Richard, he's a very excitable guy. And one of the first times we were playing at our open mic that we used to run, he ran over. He's like, "Was that song about wrestling?" About Roddy Piper, and we're like, "Yeah, they're all about wrestling." It's, oh my god! So it kind of blew his mind.
And that's the thing, like this, because like I said, like, there's only like 3 or 4 acts that I've heard of that just focus purely on wrestling as their subject matter. Every time I find a new one, I'm like, whoa, I need to check this out. So like you are just the latest guys that I've seen that do this kind of stuff. I think like Hot Dad is one.
Okay, yeah.
Josiah Williams, obviously he does his Wrestle Flow stuff. But obviously that's more rap, and that's it. So actually, there's only 3 of you that I know.
I'd recommend Cheap Pop. I like them a lot. Female fronted. They have about 6 songs out. JBL's Flask is my favorite.
JBL's Flask.
Yep.
As in John Bradshaw Layfield's flask? Or is that just a coincidence?
No, it's about him getting drunk on commentary.
Oh, nice. I've actually just written those down as well. I'm going to go check those out afterwards. So, what is the biggest gig that you've done so far?
Ugh. We don't play that many big gigs, to be honest. Our most recent album release show was probably our best one that we've had. Really, it was on my birthday. It really brought me a lot of joy to see that many people come out for our album release and stuff like that. We played a festival in New Brunswick a couple years ago. It was called Mestival, and it was their 10th anniversary, and they brought in. They wanted, like, each year was a different theme, and this year they wanted to make it wrestling theme, so they called on us. And then they actually had live wrestling there. And they liked the live wrestling so much that they brought it back the next year.
Nice. Did they bring you back the next year, though?
They did not bring us.
They failed then. They failed.
They like to keep it fresh every year, so that's fine.
So, like, how many? I mean, was that quite a big festival around where you are, or?
Not really. Like, there's not a whole lot of big stuff. Like, every now and then we'll get like the big Metallica thing outside or whatever. But as far as like, no, not really. Like, the Maritimes is pretty small. It's slim pickings over here.
I mean, to be fair, like I'm not in a band, nor will I ever be in a band. I am very musically challenged, but from what I gather, like a lot of bands, musicians, love playing in intimate venues anyway. So you don't need that, that large scope, and especially considering the likes of Spotify, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. Like bands don't even need to tour anymore if they don't want to. Yeah. But it's good that you guys get about in the smaller places, do open mic nights and stuff like that, and shock people like your tall fan when you're cranking out wrestling tunes.
Yeah, absolutely. I lost my train of thought. But yes, absolutely.
I do it all the time. This is why I tangent. I just go off in my own little world.
I was just gonna say, it's as long as the people are into it. Like in the song B+ that your listeners just heard, there's the point in which the audience would say yes with you, and as long as that kind of thing happens, it doesn't matter how many people are there, as long as they're into it.
Yeah. So, do you guys have any like side projects or anything like wrestling based? Because I know you are big fans. Obviously you are. You wouldn't be doing wrestling stuff in your music. But do you guys have any like side projects? Do any of you guys like venture off into into podcasting or separate YouTube channels, any of that kind of stuff?
Nothing consistent. I'll tell you, like we all play in different bands. So like this is the one where we all get together and do wrestling stuff. Except Joel just started another band called Bullet Bill Club, which is his nerd band, but also included. So Bullet Bill of Mario fame, and then Bullet Club is the namesake of that band. They're a very similar band where they do nerd, video game, all that kind of stuff. My other bands that I've been in for a decade now, called the Graboids, has nothing to do with wrestling, but there's been a consistent wrestling storyline during our live shows. Where I dress up in my identical twin brother dresses up in a Rey Mysterio masks, and often tables break, and there's a title that exchanges hands during the set. But the actual songs have nothing to do with wrestling, so it's still dumb. But
what is people's reactions to that?
Well, that's the best part, is because I never tell people when it's going to happen. So they're just like, what the fuck? Like the first couple times the very first time it happened, my guitar player was leaving the band. We eventually would replace him. But I got the bar manager, who also likes wrestling, to heckle us. And eventually I go and I slap him in the face pretty much as hard as I can. And then we brawl for the rest of the set. I have a wireless microphone inside my mask, and I'm singing the set while we're actually beating each other up. I don't know how it sounded. I don't think it sounded good.
To be fair, I think the visual picture would be enough. I think people would probably actually focusing on the guy in the band brawling with the barman.
Exactly, right? Yeah. But as far as podcasts and stuff, like we've always wanted to, but we just haven't kept anything up consistently. Like there's the YouTube channel, so fun little stuff happens there every now and then, but nothing consistent.
I mean, you never know. Now that Mr. Cabana's going away, you could take on the mantle of wrestling music podcasting.
There you go.
So there you go. You have an entry point into this market now. Or maybe I'll just steal the idea and run with it myself.
You could. Anybody who just wants to recycle the idea of playing a different wrestle song every week is a good idea.
I will have to do some insane research into finding out all these bands. I'll just call on you. You guys know more than I do when it comes to bands that focus on wrestling music.
You bet.
So as we start to wind down, I have 3 questions for you.
Okay.
To end things, and Two of them are obvious, and one is just one that I'm just personally curious about. Obviously, this is not wrestling related. Who is your favorite band? Who's your favorite musician?
God damn. What do I even listen to anymore? Okay, my musician. I like bands. I like songwriting. That's my main jam. Like, as you can tell with this band, we focus mainly on lyrics and the musical comedy. Like, I like anything clever. So when you bring up Flight of the Valkyries in the B+ song, like that's all intentional. That's all writing. So as far as actual musicians, whatever. I like songwriting. I like bands. So there's a band from around these parts. I can't tell you exactly where they're from, either Newfoundland, Peterborough, or PEI. They're called The Burning Hell. I don't suppose you've heard of The Burning Hell, have you?
I have not.
I can't describe them exactly, but folk would be a word in there, but just clever as heck lyrics. And like, I can't stress how much I love this band enough. Just the way, like, there's a song called Amateur Rapper where it's an indie rock song where he's pretty much rapping through the whole thing. They do a lot of rap, like weird white boy rapping, but not in a bad way. Like in a folk way, like not even ironic, like just really well done, really good writing. So The Burning Hell would probably be my favorite thing to listen to at the moment. So
hang on, let me get that written down in the notes. You're giving me a nice little portfolio here. I'm happy.
Another good track by The Burning Hell is "Fuck the Government, I Love You," which is about it's a love song about two people meeting at a party, and yeah, just it tells the story about their love story about New Year's Eve together.
I like that. I like the fact that it's just folk rap. I don't know anybody who does folk rap, but now I know one band that does it, and supposedly does it well. I will find out as soon as I come away from this. I'm going to go. I'm assuming they're on Spotify, or is it a YouTube?
They are, yeah.
So I'll go get straight on Spotify, and I'm going to type in The Burning Hell and just see what I'm just going to shuffle and see what happens.
Okay, yeah. Don't expect it to all be rap. There's only a couple raps in the band, but yeah.
I will search for that rap. I need to hear folk rap. I need that in my life. So this one actually, there's not really that many lyrics within wrestling themes as such. I mean, obviously there are, some. But what is if you could only listen to one wrestling theme for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I want to go with Cult of Personality, if that counts.
Yeah, absolutely. That absolutely counts. Because I have so much love for that song, and honestly, it doesn't even stem from the fact that that CM Punk used it. It was back. I'm trying to think which game it was. I think it was San Andreas GTA. I think it was in there. And then all of a sudden I went from that to hearing it in wrestling. And I was like, oh my god! And it wasn't even that. Guitar Hero 3, I believe it was in that as well. I was like, oh, this song. So you get to get both. You get a good wrestling song, and you just get a good song.
Do you know Orange Cassidy as well? Do you know of the Orange Cassidy?
Yeah.
So Starship does his theme, his current theme. I guess it's gonna have to change, but I forget the song title. But that song as a wrestling theme is my favorite thing for him specifically. The way he comes out to that song is my favorite thing in wrestling right now.
I mean, just out of curiosity, actually, now that you've brought him up, because he seems to divide opinion. Like, what side of the fence do you sit on with Orange Cassidy?
Like, I'm fearful for his run in a major company. Him, just like Joey Ryan, showing up at indie shows doing the same kind of thing every time, but for a small audience. It's magical. It's amazing. It's so freaking perfect and unexpected. And if you're seeing it for the first time, it's so good. My favorite, I went to WrestleMania week this year. So many small indie shows. My favorite match was the Super Show with Orange and the Best Friends versus SCU. And I think that was my first time seeing Orange Cassidy. I saw him 2 more times that weekend versus Takamichi Noku and somebody else. So I love it so much right now. I'm fearful for as it keeps going. I hope they have the foreshadowing to figure out how to not improve, but like move the character forward. When I went to the spring break, Joe Janelle spring break, people were chanting like same old shit to Joey Ryan. So he has his fans. He has people who diss him now because it is the same old shit. It's getting old. So I hope they figure that out with Orange Cassidy.
Yeah, and that's my concern as well, because it was only a couple of weeks ago that because when I first saw it, I was like, what the hell is going on here? But then I started to find it funny, and I think a few weeks later, I saw him, I think it might have been Wrestle Circus, and I saw him in there, and I was just like, it's starting to wear off a little bit.
Yeah.
But then I'd see him dive through the ropes with his hands in his pocket, and I'd be like, oh, now I'm back on board. And then it's little stuff like that. And he did that at All Out as well, and kept his sunglasses on, which is hella impressive. But you're absolutely right. It's just how AEW, go like move with that character going forward, because I think it does have a sell by date, so you need to you kind of need to make it 3-dimensional. But how they do that, like it's a pretty tough task, especially with more eyes on them, in a more mainstream company, because now people will know who Orange Cassidy is, and they'll go, oh, what's kind of going on here? So they've got to really handle with care, I'd say.
Yeah, but absolutely.
So fingers crossed. I mean, this is big for him. So fingers crossed it actually works out quite well for him.
Yeah.
Final question before I let you go and carry on writing your third album. If you could write theme music for any wrestler, who would you go for? I kind of have an inkling who it might be, but who would you go for?
Who the hell do you think it might be? I don't know. That's a crazy question.
Yeah.
It's really anybody. Like, you look at the album, we write so many. We get off on writing different genres. There was a local wrestler, and it was the only real local guy we did a theme for, just because we just wanted to see if we could do it. He told us he liked Kid Rock, so we wrote a friggin' Kid Rock song for him. And it's the most fun. So goddamn, man. Who's my favorite wrestler right now is Montez Ford. I think I've narrowed it down to Montez Ford as my favorite wrestler, but I don't think we could do him justice. I don't think we could do the white boy rap for him. So
you could pull folk rap out of your back pocket.
Wouldn't suit him though. What's your inkling? What did you think?
I mean, I'm just going off just purely the Yes album, and the name of the band itself. I was going to say Daniel Bryan, but there's a lot of people that you could, because you have that fun side of it. So all you need is like a fun wrestler to get behind, and your music would just fit.
Yeah, so we could say Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends right there.
There you go. So obviously Orange Cassidy is listening to this podcast. So
obviously,
and Starship
he's
can
asleep.
be no more.
Orange Cassidy's asleep right now. He's not paying attention to anything.
However, if he's asleep and he's not listening to this, then we'll rely on word of mouth. He will have to ditch Starship, and he'll have to bring in the B+ players.
Let's do it.
Which everybody should do, by the way. They should all bring in the B+ players into their daily music listening lifestyles. Now, before you go, I'll give you this opportunity to plug all your socials, your YouTubes, where we can find the album, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all different, so I have to look them up myself. The Twitter, I love being on Twitter. I'm the one who does the Twitter. I make ridiculous, stupid claims sometimes, but it would be the B+ players on Twitter. Instagram, official B+ players. YouTube, whatever. Look us up on YouTube. There's a DDP music video. Look up the DDP music video on YouTube. Small story about that. I tweeted at DDP that we had a song about him, and he said, "Yeah, I know my video editor's making a video for you." And Dylan Freimer, he was Sunny Days in the Battle Royal at All In. He edited like a sweet ass like clip based DDP music video for us. So go look that up.
That is I can't let you go on that one. That's just mental. So basically, I need for me to be successful in doing this, I need to start writing wrestling music and then letting them know that I wrote a song about them, and then I'm in.
Yeah, it doesn't always work. Some of the more famous guys don't give a shit because they got some. Well, yeah, DDP, like, I'm not going to say he's not famous, but he doesn't have things that are like punching him in the face every day like Seth Rollins or somebody would be, or Daniel Bryan or whatever. So yeah. And the last thing I'll promote is the Bandcamp, the bplusplayers.bandcamp.com. You can buy the album there, or Spotify, Apple Music, whatever. You can go listen and stream for free.
And of course, I will drop those links in the show notes as well. If anybody is wanting to jump on board the B Plus Players train, and you should. And if it wasn't because of the B Plus track at the start, it's definitely going to be because of the track we're about to play in just a second. It's very catchy. It will stick in your head, and you will go on Spotify and you will listen to it. I will guarantee you that. But Adrian, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Maybe when you release your next album in 3 years' time, you can come back on.
Absolutely.
And you can plug it as much as you want, and you can tell me stories about the countless other wrestlers who have acknowledged your fine work up to this point.
You got it, man.
Giant Baba, Shohei Baba, Big Baba, Baba, Baba the Giant. They call him the Great Baba, Shohei Baba, Big Face Baba the Giant Zebra. And karaoke, attack with the Noki, both were trained by Ricky Duzan, challenged Buddy Rogers, and San Martino before founding all Japan. Kyoto, China, Bjorn, bona fide legend of Perizoo. First W champion from South America, got that belt off Jack Briscoe. He was Giant Baba, Shohei Baba, Big Baba, Baba, Baba the Giant. They call him the Great Baba, Shohei Baba, Big Face Baba the Giant Zebra. Challenged the Destroyer and brought him on over, feuded for a while with Dan Hansen. Got his first big title from Jake the Bruiser, even tackled Andre the Giant. A beloved hero, Japanese culture, statue show, he could suplex a car. Most important promoter, the national icon, one of pro wrestling's biggest stars. He was Giant Baba, Shohei Baba, Big Baba, Baba, Baba the Giant. They call him the Great Baba, Shohei Baba, Big Face Baba the Giant Zebra. Giant Baba, Shohei Baba, Big Baba, Baba, Baba the Giant. They call him the Great Baba, Shohei Baba, Big Face Baba the Giant Zebra.
Well, that chat was a lot of fun. A nice little insight into the band, and it's pretty impressive the accolades they've got under their belt. You know, having all this feedback from the wrestlers who have featured in their music. You know, it must be a pretty humbling thing to, you know, you have this subject matter, and that subject matter comments on your creation and gives you a thumbs up for it. So kudos to the guys, you know, for achieving that level of success at least. But hopefully that new album that they're working on at the moment doesn't take 3 years to come out. I'm very much looking forward to that coming out. And honestly, go check these guys out, because you know they've got good stuff. They do have good stuff, and you got 2 albums worth of enjoyment as well. But that was the guest spot this week. Very, very fun. Next week, of course, we'll have something else lined up, but that is still in the works. We don't know who that's going to be. It's a mystery. But that just leaves a Q&A for this week, and not as big as last week. Last week's was it was pretty epic, and I purposely didn't promote the question post that much, because I think having that level of Q&A every week is just overwhelming, and it adds like half an hour onto the show as well. So I think maybe I'll start putting a limit on the questions that I read out. But thankfully only 2 questions came in this week, so that's good. Now the first one is actually honestly really easy for me to answer because somebody else has answered on my behalf. Josh Robinson, my co-host on Dits versus Josh, asked, who would you put in a 2019 version of the Dangerous Alliance? Now, it took me a while to kind of think this one through. I was sat in work when this question came in, so I was kind of like, who would I put in? Brainbuster Radio then jumped in with an answer. The voice of the group would be Zelina. The team in the group would be The Revival. And the stars, Velveteen Dream and Matt Riddle, with a wild card being Robert Roode. And I saw that and I was like, you know what? I don't think I could do any better than that. In fact, my comment to that was, love capitals, because capitals mean everything in this situation. Love that. So, honestly, Josh, I don't think I can answer it better than they did. So I'm just going to go with their answer. How lazy is that? How lazy. But you do have a secondary question. Here we go. Why the fuck have you not booked a flight to Adelaide to visit me yet? Truth be told, I think if I went to Australia, I would probably die. That is my thing. You have snakes, you have spiders the size of my head, you have countless amount of creatures and animals I don't even know exist that are all gunning to kill me. So, that's probably why I'm not keen to come to Australia. I mean, you come to the UK. How about that? You come to the UK when the most likely thing that is going to kill you is a fox, or maybe a raccoon, or maybe just a moth. We have moths. We have loads of them. Midgies. You might even get some midgies attacking you, but certainly not poisonous snakes and poisonous spiders and poisonous fruit and poisonous frogs or whatever the hell you have over there. Poisonous fucking trees. Pass. That's why I haven't been to Australia yet. And probably never will because it terrifies me. Omega Luke, fellow Plymouth wrestling podcaster, great guy. What name on the indie scene would make you go to shows in Plymouth for companies like Reach? Just to see that person alone. Ooh. Now, when I first saw this question, a name popped into my head, and it was David Starr, guy making huge waves on the independent scene. You could actually argue that he is Mr. Independent, but it turns out he was actually at a Reach wrestling show a couple of weeks ago for Thursday Night Reach 2. I don't know if you guys know, but the pub Walkabout, Australian themed bar in the UK. I don't know if it extends beyond the UK, but I know of its existence in the UK, and that's all that matters. They actually staged the show there, which was really, really cool. It's their 18 plus show, so you can go there, you can drink some beer, have a good time. And David Starr was there against Plymouth's very own Eddie Ryan. Eddie Ryan is somebody, I'm keen to get on the show in the very near future, by the way. So stay tuned for that. But in terms of somebody, coming in, Chris Brooks, maybe, he's an exceptional talent, and there's just so many. There's so many guys who are available. But I think that are there that many guys available? Because people are getting snapped up left, right, and center by, not just WWE, just all the companies like AEW are on the. I wouldn't say they're on the hunt for talent at the moment as aggressively as WWE, but they are on the hunt for people to join. I'm going to answer the question, but pretend it's a different question. So for your, like, I would say somebody in the vein of Chris Brooks, I think, would be, quite interesting. Haskins, somebody like him. But somebody who I think would be good for Reach, because, Reach is our, and by our I mean me and Luke's local promotion. And this would, this is going to divide opinion as well, what I'm about to say. But I think somebody along the lines of Joey Ryan going to Reach would do that company like a world of good. I know, obviously, I mentioned it in the chat with Adrian there and the B+ players about Joey Ryan, and mentioned it, in my rant as well at the start of the show. I do sit on the fence when it comes to Joey Ryan. He has his fans, he has his haters. However, people talk about Joey Ryan, and therefore any promotion that he appears on is in the limelight. So get Joey Ryan to Reach Wrestling is in the spotlight. So in terms of that, get Joey Ryan or somebody like him. If Orange Cassidy hadn't just been signed up by AEW, I would say get him down. Just somebody that is going to create a little bit of buzz for Reach. Not that Reach really needs it. They're building, naturally, organically. They're starting to make waves now, which is really, really cool. If you, by having the likes of David Starr come down to their show, it's a bit of a rub that. So onward and upward, I think, for Reach. Me and Luke are both supporters of Reach Wrestling as well. And if you are a wrestling fan, I do, highly recommend going to check out your local shows, because, you'll be pleasantly surprised of, the quality that you get from these shows. You just assume that the mainstream companies are, the ones that produce the goods, but it really isn't the case. A lot of indie shows produce some of the best wrestling in the world. And that is the God's honest truth. Somebody like Haskins, Chris Brooks, come to Reach. I'd go and check that out. Maybe Joe Hendry. Actually, I don't know what he's up to these days, but he's a guy that I'd love to check out. But yeah, there you go. So there's your two questions, or technically three, because Josh has two. Which kind of made me reveal my fears of Australia. But there you go. They're the questions for this week. So thank you very much, you two, for supplying those. I'll say next week again we'll get some more questions on, but I'll aim for 3 or 4. That's the goal. 3 or 4 an episode will suffice. But that is us for today. Really, really enjoyable show. Really good chat with Adrian there, with the B+ players. Good chat about 2 great Raw and Smackdowns, and had my little rant at the start of the show as well. So, take that as you will. I wasn't expecting to rant, but I did rant. I like a good rant every now and then. But as I always say, when it comes to this part of the show, it really is a big thank you to you guys for, listening to me every single week. Because, without your support, like I've always said, I'm literally just talking in a microphone, to myself. As much as I enjoy this regardless, just knowing that I have people listening to the show and enjoying what I'm doing, just it gives it that little bit of a bonus. So, honestly, big thank you to you guys. But to support the show, like you already have been, but to support the show even more, head over to, wherever you listen to this podcast, give it a 5-star review, subscribe, follow it, like it, whatever that podcast directory, gives you the option to do. Review the show as well, because obviously, reviews go a long way, and it's nice to hear nice words about you, isn't it, really? That's just fact. That is just fact. But that is, of course, all we have time for today, and you'll be happy to know that we are nowhere near the length that last week's episode was. Obviously, we're at the 2-hour mark, but hey, that's the price you pay for getting good chats. I try and limit them at 20 minutes and usually go for like 40 to an hour. Maybe it's something I can work on. I don't know. I get too caught up in the conversation. But there you go. We'll be obviously back next week with episode 20. So a little bit of a celebration episode there. But like I said, we're going to hold off until episode 25 for our big celebration. Power rankings, of course, the window is open right now. Get over on Twitter and submit your rankings today. Window shuts on Sunday, and the results will be read out on the show next week. And just a little shout out for my little article that I've got on sltvwrestling.com, my fan art of the week article. Go and check that out. There's so many good WWE fan artists out there. And I collate the best of them every single week. So you'll find that on Fridays every single week. So look out for that on my Twitter as well. I'm on SLTV's timeline as well. Or just head over to the website and you'll find all the archived ones that I've done so far. I think I'm on the 5th edition this week. So there's something else you can enjoy under the Dits on Wrestling umbrella, shall we say. But no, thank you guys for listening. I will see you all next week for episode 20.